Good news, finally, get a chance to play ball. Your reaction to this coming down today?
Well, finally we get it done. It's exciting. It was a close vote, but the players voted 28-12 in favor. That's good enough to get an agreement. The owners still have to ratify it, but we understand they already have the 3/4 vote in place when the proposal was made, so that's just a formality. There is a press conference, a conference call with the general managers later this afternoon to make the announcement that opening day will be on April 7th. Spring training camps can open immediately. Free agents can start signing tonight. Trades are open. So baseball is going to get really busy from now. It's exciting, but let's take time for everyone to understand now that there's an agreement in place. There'll be a 162-game schedule, the full schedule. This is going to include some double headers to get there, but baseball is committed on playing the full schedule. The real winner in these negotiations will end up being the fans, because when you look at this agreement, there's a lot of things in place that's going to make the game better. Number one, tanking is going to be curtailed because of a lottery system that's in place. Service time manipulation is going to be derailed because of this. The CBT has been raised, but there's still a level there to not let teams like the Mets or Yankees have a runaway payroll, because the penalties for this going over the thresholds are still going to be significant. The minimum for the players is going to be $700,000, up from $570,000. That is a huge plus for the players. In 2023, they're going to ban the shifts. They're going to have bigger bases. There's going to be a pitch clock. So there's just a lot of things in here that's going to make the game better for the players. There is expanded playoffs involved here as well. Again, more excitement for more teams getting into the postseason. So when you look at this, despite the process being terrible, despite everyone being dragged through the media, the fans going through all this pain, the good news is spring training is going to open immediately. The first spring training game is expected to be March 17th, 1 week from the day. Opening day, April 7th. Let's go. I'm getting excited.
I mean, Jim, just kind of take us to this whirlwind that we're seeing, because, it's been quite some time to get to this point. You mentioned the 162. They're going to get that in. Opening day set for April 7th. Kind of break down the whirlwind people will kind of see as we watch the game kind of return to us a bit.
Well, the free agent market is still loaded with a lot of free agents, and that is going to be the first thing the GMs are going to try to get into immediately. And you're going to see some players sign pretty quickly out of the gate. You've got left-handed free agents like Carlos Rodon and Kikuchi, a free agent from Seattle. Both of them expected to sign quick. We think Freddy Freeman's going to make his decision, whether it's the Braves or the Dodgers. We expect that to be right away. But we got so many big free agents still in the market, like Carlos Correa and Chris Bryant, Nick Castellanos, Michael Conforto, closer Kenley Jansen. So there's a lot of players out there that don't have jobs. Their agents are going to start negotiating tonight with the general managers to try to get deals done quickly so they can get into camp. As I said, spring training camps are going to be open. Players, they're going to have a mandatory reporting date on Sunday. So they're going to try to get everybody in right away and get playing. There's a list of free agents right there. We didn't mention Trevor Story, Clayton Kershaw, Anthony Rizzo, Kyle Schwarber, a few other guys we didn't mention. But all of them unsigned, and all of them, a lot of negotiations. And remember, Scott Boras represents most of the big free agents. So he's got a lot of work to do for himself over the next few days and week or so. But expect Major League Baseball GMs to act quickly and swiftly, because April 7th is going to come fast. You got to get camp open. You got to get guys in shape. You're going to see managers and coaches having 2-a-days at the ballpark to get guys ready. So it's an exciting time, and certainly, look, none of us wanted a work stoppage. None of us wanted to miss games. I think it's exciting that baseball has now saved the entire regular season and, quite frankly, saved the sport.
All right, Jim Bowden, of course, you probably didn't get any sleep the last couple of weeks or months. You're definitely not going to get any sleep now with free agency set to kick off tonight. And, of course, opening day tentatively started on April 7th. As always, join us on that breaking news. Jim Bowden breaking that down for us. Appreciate your time. We'll keep it moving here, of course, but taking a look when it comes to odds winning the World Series. Guys will start to get into spring training reporting on Sunday as Bowden broke that down, confirming that news. When you take a look at it, the Dodgers are favorite. It feels like we haven't seen this full screen in quite some time because we haven't had anything in spring training or players at all reporting since everything shut down. But the Dodgers leading the clubhouse when it comes to winning the World Series odds.
And for more reaction to the deal, let's bring in our former MLB executive, David Sampson, the host of the Nothing Personal podcast with David Sampson. David, in the break, I asked you how you're feeling, and you said things went down exactly as we have been saying it would on the podcast for the past 8 months. Break it down for us.
Yeah, I've just been telling people not to panic. Collective bargaining is a very complicated process, made more complicated by the existence of social media and the desire to get updates every 2 minutes. So we've all been pressing refresh on our Twitter and looking for breaking news, looking for any sort of up, any sort of down. And there's been panic out there. And the owners the entire time had a plan. They knew exactly how late they could get an agreement before having a full season. It turns out the players knew exactly how late they needed to agree to an agreement to have a full season. All of the back and forth that we went through, all of the bid, the ask, where's CBT, it all ended where it should. But I do have a few comments, if we have time, about where this deal ended up, Jeremy.
Please, David, go ahead. The floor is yours, my friend.
So the players had goals going into this. The first goal is they wanted to eliminate tanking. They felt as though that the more teams going for it, the better it is for free agents and the better it is for salaries to escalate. So they instituted something called the draft lottery. We know that from basketball and sticky envelopes and Patrick Ewing. Now in baseball, if you have the worst record in the game, you will not get the first pick. But in baseball, unlike football and basketball, the first pick is not guaranteed to succeed. And the first pick is often years away from helping, unlike the NBA and the NFL. Therefore, the thought of a draft lottery is something that we had contemplated for years in this game and was not a big give. And on top of that, it will not change the behavior of owners and GMs who feel the best thing is to rebuild. Second, the players wanted more money to younger players. Look what happened to the minimum. The minimum is now $700,000. That, when I first got in the game, it was a long time ago, I think it was in the 160s, the 180s. That is a huge increase for the young players. Next, they wanted to have no cap to what owners could spend on the high end. MLB said, we'll give you a higher CBT, which is like a salary cap. But if there's a Steve Cohen out there with the Mets, I have news for you. We're going to penalize him, and we're going to penalize him hard. That's why right here at the end, you saw Scott Boras and his clients voting against this deal. Those are the players who they think will be impacted by fewer teams being willing to go over the cap, which now will be $230 million. But at the end of the day, the majority of players in this union had a great result from this collective bargaining agreement. They got more money. They got more money before arbitration. They got more money at a minimum. There are more teams in the playoffs, and the more teams in the playoffs, the more money owners feel they have to spend in the following years because revenues go up. So it is a win for the players. It is a not big loss for the owners. And guess what? We have a regular baseball season, and no one's going to remember all of this come pennant races in September.
David, the next question I have for you is, where do the fans stand on this? Because of the fact that, Jim Bowden was saying that fans are actually one of the big winners of this deal. But, there's been a lot of anger from fans about the fact that these two sides have gone back and forth for 99 days without coming to a deal. So you say it's not going to matter when it comes to the pennant races, but what about when opening day rolls around? What do you think? How do you think the fans are going to respond?
I think you'll see 99 red balloons floating in the air on top of all of the stadiums because the fans are going to be right there in sold-out ballparks, and they're going to be very excited it's back. Don't forget, we had a work stoppage in the NFL, in the NHL, in the NBA, and you know what? Fans realize that there's stuff that happens between employees and employers, but they're quick to forget. And the reason they're quick to forget is what fans want to begin with. They want players, they want games, they want victories, they want World Series championship parades.
And they want a 162-game MLB schedule, which is exactly what they're going to get as the two sides have come to an agreement on a new collective bargaining agreement. David Sampson, thanks for hopping on with us and giving us your insight and analysis as they've come to an agreement. And in terms of the odds to win the World Series, you're going to see this page quite frequently over the next little while because Baseball is back, and we want you just as into it as we are. The Dodgers 6-1 favorites, the Astros at 9-1, Yankees, Mets, and Blue Jays at 11-1.
Happy to see something back. Will Middlebrooks, the World Series champion. Hey, you've been on Twitter, not just today, but the past few weeks going off, just like Kermit on the typewriter. Your reaction to this finally getting done here?
I'm fired up, but I'm like, I feel so emotional right now because I've just been like ups and downs and ups and downs and in between, like everything you can think of, especially over the past week, the last 2 days. I mean, even the last hour when we're hearing, oh, they might be voting against it. This might not happen. So just a glass case of emotion right now. But I'm ecstatic. Baseball's back. We're not going to miss any games, which is great for the fans. It's going to be about a week delay, which isn't going to hurt anyone. That'll help it to warm up a little bit. So I think best case scenario for both sides right now, the players weren't going to get it all back from the previous CBAs. They weren't going to get it all back. They weren't going to hit the 8-run home run like Sampson said a couple weeks ago when we talked about this. But the owners did give them a grand slam, and there's a lot of positives here for the players.
Let's break this down because there's a lot to unpack here, because tonight you can have trades going down. Free agency is open, and also spring training games start March 17th. Guys do report this weekend. Give us a player perspective of how much time they need to kind of ramp up, because now everything's just kind of rolling like this.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of guys. I'd say it's about 50-50. Some guys are already in the cities of where their camps are, mainly because they had housing, they had rent to pay, and if they're going to pay it, they might as well be there and enjoy the beach if they're living somewhere cold. That way they can get outside wherever they're working out, and then boom, they can be at the complex tomorrow. Other guys, they have to travel. They have to get there ASAP. And with free agency, it's going to be an absolute frenzy over the next 3-4 days, probably about a week time. There'll be some guys getting late to camp, the bigger names, if they don't sign immediately. But this is going to be absurd the next week. You guys are going to be talking to me a lot.
Well, you've been in those rooms too when it comes to those negotiations. Just put in perspective, of course, being on the outside looking in, how is that kind of for you? Us as the fans as well, waiting to get something back. Just kind of put us in your seat, seeing this from the outside looking in this time around.
Well, I mean, I've been in contact with two guys who were on the executive subcommittee, and they wanted to get this done months ago, and it just couldn't get going. And then they would feel like they're getting traction, and there would be extra asks from the owners and from the league, and that would add to it at the last moment and look bad on the players. So it's been a constant PR battle, which is really tough in this day and age with Twitter and social media and everything. But they just want to play. I mean, a lot of people in the public saying no one cares about the fans. That's not true. Ask guys who played during COVID how different it was with no fans in the stands to when you have a packed house of 70,000 people. You play better. You tap into a higher potential of the player you can be with the fans fueling you and giving you that adrenaline. So we're just happy, and I say we because I was a part of this once upon a time. We are happy to have baseball back and have the fans back involved as well.
We are looking at it again, opening day, April 7th. We know guys have been ramping up, but realistically, conditioning, are you expecting to see guys at 100% come opening day here?
Yeah, the guys I've talked to especially pitchers, have been training differently. Over this past month, they have started getting pitch count up. It's not innings, it's pitch count, because we know pitchers don't go as deep into games in this era right now. So guys are ramping up. They're throwing to live hitters. Hitters are facing live pitching. There's been some sim games around here in Florida at places where guys have been getting together. At Cressy Sports Performance up the road here, I know that a lot of the Marlins guys who are here for spring training in Jupiter would get together and have players hold practices so they could start to learn each other, which is important. But I think 3-week spring training is going to be enough if you have been getting your work in. Hitters need 30 to 40 at bats. I think that 2 to 3 at bats for 10 to 15 games is enough. But I think the 5-6 days of what they call camp days, where you're doing pop-up priority, you're doing rundowns, you're turning double plays, because the infield is going to look a little different now with no shift and all that. So you're really going to have to learn your teammates. Say if I'm a third baseman, I need to know the range of my shortstop to know what I need to get to and what I don't, and vice versa. So there's a lot of things that go into those camp days of just getting to know your teammates.
I know it's probably going to be hard, Will, but can you sum up in one word this whole process of getting to this point? One word, how you would break down what we were just seeing here today?
Stressful. Stressful. But man, as crazy as it has been, makes it just that much better to see that a deal's done and baseball's back.
Your reaction to this news finally coming down after all this waiting?
Relief. We've been waiting, and I know many fans and fantasy players, it's been tough the past couple of months because a lot of the times it feels like you're almost doing research for no reason, right? We didn't even know if there was going to be a full season, if there was going to be a season at all. So finally, we get this fantastic news that there will be a season opening day on April 7th, and now people can start drafting, planning their drafts, doing their research. You should have been doing that anyway, listening to Fantasy Baseball today, but now it's real,
Tell 'em,
and I'm
Frank.
excited to jump in.
Of course, as you mentioned there, yeah, April 7th, opening day. So that does get us into some of the players, as you mentioned there, with those drafts around the corner. First of all, I'm curious, when you're thinking about it now, because it's not that much time here, let's break this down. What does it mean for the hitters if you're thinking about some of those big-time guys and draft them on your team?
Yeah, I actually think that there could be an advantage for hitters early on in the season. So we know that spring training games can start 1 week from today. I actually think it's a pretty short ramp-up period, and I think it could affect pitchers early on in the season. So, younger pitchers, maybe we don't see them go as deep into games. I'm hoping that a lot of these pitchers have been training and on a normal schedule, but I think that there's a chance that we don't see starting pitchers go as deep into their starts early on in the season. As a result, we'll see more bullpens, and I think that this could lead to more offense early on in the season. So overall, I don't think that this changes the top part of your drafts all that much. I mean, the top 5 picks in most drafts this season were going to be some combination of Fernando Tatis, Vladimir Guerrero, Jose Ramirez, and I think that it should remain that way for now.
All right, we'll see how that pans out. In your opinion, Frank, I'm curious, when should people start drafting? Because we do get those spring training games, as you mentioned, opening day on the 7th. Are we thinking April 1st, later this month? What are we thinking here?
Yeah, so I think the ideal date is going to be that Saturday, April 2nd, right? A lot of people like to draft the weekend before the season starts. If you could draft even closer to the start of the season, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, leading up to that Thursday opening day, the more information we have, the better, because we'll have more news about injured players. Ronald Acuna, is he playing in spring training? How does he look? If he looks 100%, then he's once again a top 5, maybe even a top 3 pick in fantasy baseball. Jacob Degrom, we're waiting to find out more about his elbow. What does that mean for his usage early on in the season? Is he going to be healthy? So the more information we have, the better it is. I would say that weekend right before the season starts, April 2nd, or even the days leading right up to that Thursday, I would look to draft. But if you're like me, you never stop drafting. We just keep going.
Exactly. We keep on going here now that everything is coming back. I want to take a look at some of those unsigned free agents because there's still some big names out there that people might want to snag come draft time. Taking a look here, the top 10. In your opinion here, who might catch your eye if you're thinking about drafting them, of course, assuming once they get signed to a team?
Yeah, so Freddy Freeman is the one that's going earliest in drafts right now on this list. He is a borderline first-round pick, maybe an early second-round pick, and obviously you got to see where he winds up. Is he going to go back to the Atlanta Braves? Is he going to wind up with the New York Yankees? I think that short porch in right field, that would suit Freddy Freeman very well. I think he's going to be good regardless of where he winds up, but man, if you put him in Yankee Stadium, that would be massive for his fantasy baseball value. Trevor Story is the one that I really want to watch closely because it's unlikely that he's going to return to the Colorado Rockies. And obviously, Rockies hitters get a huge boost playing their games in Coors Field. So where does he wind up? Does he wind up in a bigger ballpark? How much does that affect his offensive production this upcoming season? Carlos Correa, another name. Not really sure who the suitors are at this point. Is it the Yankees? Is it the Houston Astros returning back there? We heard some whispers of the Chicago Cubs, which is kind of curious because it seems like they're rebuilding right now. So lots of names to figure out. And it sounds like it could be coming soon, fast and furious. Very exciting time. Again, we're going to be doing emergency podcasts for each of these signings and trades that happen. So, looking forward to talking about their fantasy value once we find out where they do wind up.
Oh, you're going to be busy. I hope you got your coffee loaded, Frank, because it's starting tonight. So you got some work to do tonight into maybe the next couple of weeks here. Frank Sample, as always, breaking it down with that fantasy angle with the breaking news of MLB making a return. He said, hey, look, if you're not listening, this is where you should have been listening before. Fantasy Baseball Today, the fellas have been cooking like hot grease, and they will continue to do it with emergency pods. It's free agency begins tonight. Spring training, and hey, opening day right there, April 7th. Download and give them a follow. You'll need it, trust me.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.